Now we'll be officially starting our patch 26.4 tier list. But yeah, these are basically buffs and nerfs. The biggest changes are Gwen, Nafiri, Darius, and I would say Graves as well, that you're probably curious about. And honestly, the brand buff I do like as well. I'll tell you why soon. And the Kiana got nerfed, but it's fine. But anyway, I'll be talking to you guys about every single change that they made and what I think is strong, what is weak, on the new patch especially, and which champs you should avoid playing, okay? But I'll be talking mostly about Emerald Plus. If you want the tier list below that, it will be on my Discord that I'll be uploading. But for now, it's only Emerald Plus, okay? Anyway, Aatrox. I think Aatrox, by the way, in higher elos, even though got nerfed previously, I would rate it A+. This champion, if you actually know how to play this champion properly, and if you build correctly, this champion, especially against champions that are bruisers or like a bit melee champions, is actually really strong. It's not as broken that I put it S tier, but I would say A+. Mumu. Honestly, this always depends on the draft, but I think Emerald Plus, this champ is gonna always be solid. I would say that if you play against champ like, let's say, Vi, and you have a good draft, you can easily put it A+, but it's draft dependent, okay? Bel'Veth. Okay, you might be wondering, Kirei, would you recommend Bel'Veth and Emerald Plus? I would say this champ is completely fine to main, but you need to know how to play on this champion's side lane. If you don't know how to understand how to play side lane, and if your champion master is a bit sus, I would put like A tier, but I do think if you're actually really good on this champion and if you're an OTP, I'll put it on A+. If you're actually good on this champion, I would say it's pretty solid. Brand. Okay, if you don't know about the brand buffs, I'm gonna just show you, right? They basically buffed 5% extra damage on passive and the monster damage cap. So essentially, they're just buffing the clear. I personally always thought that brand's actually pretty good, because if you play against a lot of bruiser champions, this champ in my books is like A+, because I think Leandri and Rylai are very toxic items, and I don't know about you guys, but if you play against a good brand in high elo, and he doesn't die for fun, plays objectives, plays teamfights, it's really annoying to play against. It's one of the more underrated champions, but I would say that it's a really strong champion. Camille. Okay, guys. I would say it right now, it is full clear meta. I can tell you, let's say if you go to Emerald Plus, this champ is not going to be it. I researched it previously, but if your champion doesn't scale that well, and you need to really rely on like outplaying people or playing very well, usually it's not a good champion in meta. So I would put this champion like C tier, because imagine a Camille full clearing, comparing it to like a brand, comparing that to like any other champ that's very good in full clearing and team fighting, Camille's gonna fall off so hard. You have to basically play against people that are boosted, and yes, you can then 1v9, but if that's not the case, it's gonna feel very awkward. Cho'Gath. I think Chocho actually is pretty strong. I would personally say that Cho'Gath, if you're actually good on this champion, I would rate it A+ as well, simply because the kit of this champion is very well, and it 1v1s actually a lot of champions. Scaling wise as well is pretty good. Out of the champions, I would say this champ is very annoying to play against as well, so I'll put it A+. Darius. Okay, Darius actually got a quite big buff. Originally, the modifier was 3 times, then they nerfed it like 2 times. Now they found the middle ground a bit and 2.5. I would say that in higher elo, this champ is a lot better compared to lower elo. I would say that I would not put it like A+. I would put it like still an A tier. I do think that the other champs are just better when it comes to like snowballing, but I will not be lying. If Darius gets ahead, I think that this champ is omega disgusting, because it has so much movement speed, it has U-moves, it has Swifties. It basically allows you to like kill people very easily, and it's quite a snowbally champion if you get ahead, I would say. But I would not rate like A+, not yet at least. Diana and Emerald Plus. So I think Diana is a very strong champion. The only downside at the moment with Diana at the moment is that it gets 1v1 by a lot of champions. So while the clear and team fighting is pretty good, the 1v1 is a bit weaker. So if you play on this champion against, let's say, I'll put it here for now. If you play against the Mundo, if you play against the Volibear, Gwen, Zahan, I'm telling you, it's not really enjoyable. But in terms of team fighting, it's still very solid. So if I have to rate him somewhere, because I'm playing him as well a lot in higher elos, I'll still say it's A+. I will not say it's A, considering that I feel like in team fights it's still insane impact. So I'll put it A+. Mundo, this champion, if it's picked in the right situation, I genuinely think it's probably one of the most OP champions, simply because if let's say you play against an AD carry that's like, let's say Caitlyn, Jhin, the mid lanes, let's say Karma or Akali, you name it, anything that doesn't deal insane DPS, I would say that it's insanely broken. That's what I put Mundo. I think it's quite strong. Oh, I wouldn't be lying, it's very solid. Where would I put Echo? I think Echo is pretty solid actually. This champion has always been very good. I've always had like on high elo like A+, especially like an OTP, or if you just understand how to play Echo very well. I think that this champion has a lot of impact. If you don't have that much champion mastery on this champion, I would say it's not so good. So I would say don't play this champion if you are not very committed to it. There's a huge difference between a very good Echo and just a good Echo. So just be mindful about that. Elise. So I think Elise in even high elo has its place actually. I think right now if you go on Elise, the usual build actually, Lichbane, Storm Surge into Shadowflame, you still deal insane damage, your clear is decent, your scaling isn't even that bad. It does pretty well against most of these champions here on A+ as well. Not that good against Mundo, but if you go Conquer it's fine. But I would say that this champion is overall pretty solid in higher elos, I would say. And you can get the Challenger. Like a lot of my students that have watched my Elise guides, they actually managed to get Challenger as well by playing Elise. It literally works. Even this season, I had someone else getting Challenger as well. So this champ A+. Evelyn, okay, it's straight into the bin. I think it's B tier. I think right now, Talon, Kha'Zix, Rengar, there's so many assassins that are just better than Evelyn. They just do the job so much better. So Evelyn's just B tier. Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks is actually, ironically, I would say pretty solid, but I would say more like in a counter pick way. If you play against assassins, A+ easily. If you just pick it with like a draft where you have, let's say, a Syndra mid lane and an Ashe AD carry, where tenacity value becomes better for them, I would say it's A tier. So this is very draft dependent, but let's say you have a good draft, A+. If you don't, A tier. So knowing when you should pick this champion is pretty key, but I would say overall, considering that I don't feel like it's that insane blind pick, I'll put it just A tier, whereas I feel like the other champs are more solid than Fiddlesticks, because it's very draft dependent. Gragas, okay, I'll just put it B tier. This is a champ that's ok. Like anything that's B and C, I would say not recommended. Anything A+ is actually solid. Graves, okay, Graves actually had some pretty decent buffs. You basically get 6 armor extra. You see, 6 armor. Basically, if you jump towards the enemy team, it's 6 armor, and you basically get like 3 MR, which is actually kind of big, right? Because you can stack 8 times. So let's say 3 armor multiplied by 8 is like 24 armor extra, if I'm not mistaken. So it is actually quite a big buff, but how would I rate it? So I do think Graves is still a pretty decent champion, honestly. I've played it one game, but the problem that I have with Graves is that it gets outdrafted. When I say outdrafted, if people have the right champs against Graves, it's very difficult. So let's say they have like a mid laner like Orianna, okay? Or even Ezreal. Actually, Ezreal's fine. But a lot of champs basically outrange him. He's not going to have a great time. But if he's playing against champs that are running into him, I could say he's easily A tier. I would not put him A+, but I would say like A tier in higher elo, simply because most people know how to play him. I think in some drafts it can be A+, but it's very situational, right? Just because he got buffed against MR doesn't mean necessarily he's like much stronger, because it's still very difficult to team fight on Graves compared to other champions. So I'll put him A tier. But like I said, in some drafts A+, but mostly A tier, okay? The Fishy got buffed as well actually, but they just buffed the clear, the passive. But before Fizz was actually like C tier somewhere. I don't think it moved up much. Okay, yeah, the win rate is still pretty negative, even in Emerald. It's a very simple champion, but the champ doesn't do his job as well as other assassins, and it's much better to play other champs. While I don't think Fizz is that bad, I don't think it should be C tier. I think it should be at least B tier, considering that I think people just suck on this champion. That's one. Second thing is that you can actually one-shot people pretty easily, and your side laning picks is actually pretty good as well. So yeah, I'll put a B tier. Gwen. So Gwen actually got a pretty decent change as well. I mean, it's nerf basically, right? But you can see that they low-key buffed the clear, but they nerfed the damage per snip. So essentially when it's maxed out, it's basically 6 damage less, and there's 4 snips. So this is basically like 24 damage. Yo, Saber, thanks so much for raid, man, appreciate it. But regarding Gwen, I would say that considering these nerfs, the Argo nerfed a little bit as well, it is still very good when it comes to scaling. This doesn't matter, by the way, these nerfs. So I would say Gwen, in my books, is still actually A+, especially in higher elo if you have slower games, you know. That champ should not be there. Anyway, Briar. Where should Briar go? And honestly, I think in high elo this champ is not really that good. Depends on what elo you are. But I would put it this champ B tier. I do think Briar, if you're playing against some champions that are melee champs, you're gonna have a really great time, honestly. But most of the times, I would say Briar is not that insane high elo, simply just due to draft compositions. Not recommended. As for Hecarim, I'll be honest, I've played against decent amount of Hecarims, and if this champ gets ahead, I do think it's quite strong. I don't think the champ is that easy to play necessarily, but I do think this champ has a lot of potential. Usually I put Hecarim on A tier, but I do think on higher elo, if you're actually good at this champion, I think it's A+. You literally power farm, get a free kill, once you get ahead, you can really 1v9. So I would say this champ is pretty decent, but you need to be good on this champ, obviously, right? Ivern, okay, I mean, guys, I'll be honest, I think this champ has always been broken, especially because the new season hasn't really nerfed him or touched him. Luckily, it's not a popular champion, but I think this champ has always been pretty good. Win rate wise, this champ has always been crazy broken as well, right? It's probably the top 5 at least, I'm 100% sure. Where's Ivern? Okay, it's maybe not in top 5, but like, I can promise you this champ is better than like, okay, Evelyn says here high win rate in Emerald Plus, but, or like specifically Emerald, but this champ is pretty busted, I would say. Especially if you have melee support, not a range support ideally. Try to pick Ivern if you cannot, not with a Nami, you need someone that goes in, you know. So Jarvan is like a bit mixed feelings, because if you play against immobile carries, A+, if they're mobile, it's not as good, then I'll just put it A tier. So depending on draft, that's where it goes, but I do think in high elo, I don't think this champ is necessarily as OP, unless it's a good draft right. I don't think it wins against most champs 1v1. It's just a solid champ, but I wouldn't say it's like really that insane. So it just depends on draft. So I'll put it A tier. Jax, I think Jax, as you get higher as well, becomes A tier. Simply because this champion gets kited more easily. I do think that in team fights, you're not as OP compared to like some other champions. 1v1, you're still very strong, but because your clear is a bit slower, and you can't really impact the game that much, I would say Jax in high elos isn't as good. I wonder what the win rate is, but I don't think it's as good. I mean, 52% is actually pretty decent, but I would not put it like A+. I do think the other champs are better. They just do things better, I feel like. But I think A is a very solid place for him to be. Alright, Jace. Okay, I'm pretty sure they nerfed Jace. I'm not sure with this patch or last patch, but they nerfed Jace, but I still think this champ is like a one-trick champ low-key. If you're really good at playing Jace, I think it's A+, but for most people it's like A tier, okay? I want to highlight that. I do think this champ is still very strong, especially if you get your item power spikes. So I'll put it... I want to put it A+, but I think most people will make it look like an A tier champ. So I'm just thinking where to put it, but I think I should put where I think it should belong, and I think it should be A+. But for, like I said, for most people, A tier. Some champs can be A+, but most people can't play it. But I'm just gonna put what I think how the champ should be, if it's played well. Karthus is, in my opinion, a pretty good champion. I think the scaling is insane, super good tempo. I think that this champ, if you get a bit kills and get rolling, you'll just 1v9, simply said. Kayn, okay, Kayn is like, I'll probably put it like A tier. I don't think it's bad enough that I put it B tier, but it's like borderline B+, A-, you know? I'll put it like B tier. Simply because this champ against a lot of melee champions can still be quite good. However, you need to play against champs that literally run into you. I think Blue Kayn is just not as good. I think if you go Blue Kayn, you might as well play any other assassin than Kayn. Red Kayn, I would say solid. Let me see what is next on the menu. Kha'Zix. Okay, Kha'Zix, unironically right now, is pretty solid in high and low. I think it might even be S tier, because this champion, if I look at it right, it beats a lot of these champions on A+, and loses against the S tier champions, but it's definitely up there. I feel like this champion is balanced as hell, you know? Because with Umbral Glaive, you can build anti-shield. I think it's pretty cooked. So I would say that this champ is pretty balanced, honestly. I'll put it S tier. Kindred, it's sad for me to say, but Kindred did not benefit from any buffs, it does not benefit from any items, and they nerfed the champion itself. I feel like this champ is like okay. I think it's wrong to put it on B tier, but I'll put it on the low A tier. I don't think this champ is that bad considering scaling still decent, but which is probably the first time I've ever said this, I think. Because I think Kindred has always been a better champ than Graves, but now I think Graves is actually better. Lee Sin. Okay, if you're Asian, I can put it S. If you're, I don't want to say it, but you know, if you're not Asian and we're from, you know, Europe or America, I'll put it on A tier. I think it's a fair evaluation considering that we're not Asian. I think even if you're high elo, this champ is solid, but I would say just play other champs. Your life will be easier. I think if you're really good Lee Sin, A+, but you're still gonna get out team fighted unless you're like really good on Lee Sin. So I'll put it A tier. Okay, Lilia is actually, I feel like it's a pretty solid champion, but I think in terms of like where we would put it, I think the champions in A+ are better. I think in Emerald Plus, Lilia is probably A tier. Because if I look at the champs from A+, I do think that it gets fucked by low-key everything. You need to be really good on Lilia. And if you're really good Flash, you can make her easily A+, but for most people, it's actually A. 95% of the people, if not more. Malphite? I think Malphite is going into... It's a pretty solid champion, but it's very draft dependent, right? I think the champ is very solid. I'll put it A tier. So next to Amumu, coincidence. But simply not A+, because Malphite is really ultra-lined, and it doesn't really do much without ultimate. It's like low-key an NPC champion. So I think in the right draft is very OP, but usually it's just A+. Maokai. Actually, Maokai they buff Maokai. Maokai Leandris is actually pretty decent, but I personally would not recommend to play Maokai, simply because I think that their order champs are pretty solid. But I would say putting Maokai on B tier is a little bit criminal. I feel like this champ does deserve his place to be in the lower end A tier, simply because the ultimate is so insanely broken. And yeah, it's still a very solid champion, but I would recommend to go Leandris as first item at least. It's not B tier, it's definitely A tier, because in team fight, him pressing ultimate creates a lot of space. Master Yo-Yo. So Master Yi, I think actually is pretty solid, especially in high elo. If you know how to play this champion, I would say it's easily A+, because once you get your item power spikes, if you know how to play team fights, I think putting it on S is definitely not it. A, definitely not it, so in the middle, A+. It is low-key an OTP champ, but yeah, A+. Mordekaiser, I'll put it A tier. Main reason why I put it A tier is because it's very good against champs like Wukong, even Viego, just any champ that runs into you, insane against Volibear too. But in high elo, it's much easier to get kited. I would not say it's B tier, but it's definitely middle A tier. Naafiri. Okay, Naafiri is the other champ that got pretty decently buffed. But basically, I would say this champ is like, I would say A+. Because this champion right now, they buffed the clear, if I recall right. And that's actually toned it down a little bit. And it's pretty good engaged right as a champion. So as for the strength, it's definitely A+. The champion as well was quite decent early as well. And especially Emerald Plus onwards, I think that it's an OTP worthy champion that you can play to climb buff. And it's a solid champion. Nautilus, okay, C tier. Don't ask me why, sorry bro, but if you play Nautilus, honestly, if you have tried Nautilus, you know why it's C tier, okay? Nasus, ironically, is high A tier. You might be wondering why, because this champ scaling is actually pretty good. If you play against any champ that's like a bruiser-ish, so let's say you play against on little bruiser, even Cho'Gath, Diana, but it's so unplayable. If you play Diana against Nasus, it's not playable, right? It's just a very solid champion if you farm up and get your stacks. I would not say it's A+, because you get kited out, and if people play slow, you're kind of screwed. For that reason, A, but this champ very low elo. Sorry, very OP, low relos. Nidalee, I would say Nidalee is just A tier. I would say it's very draft dependent. If you don't have a melee support, don't play him. End of story. But I would say it's a very skilled champion. If you're good at him and you know how to play him, I think you can make him work. A+, but usually it's just A. Nocturne, okay, despite Nocturne being known as a low elo champ, I think right now this champion might be pretty solid, especially in high elo. I think if you play against champs that are a bit immobile, especially considering there's home guards, so you can just run to side and sprint to them and kill them on repeat, I do think this champ is pretty solid in higher elos, especially if they're immobile champions. So I'm actually gonna put it A+. I think this champ is very strong. Nunu, I do know that Nunu was pretty OP beginning of season, but I think now, because people figured out a little bit, I think Nunu is just A tier. I would say it's very solid in higher elos. about home guards. It fell off a little bit and he nerfed it. So it's like A tier. Olaf will put it somewhere in high A tier as well. I think Olaf's actually pretty strong 1v1, but the same problem with like a champ like Volibear. They just start falling off a bit. That's why I put him on A tier. Ornn. Ornn is not B tier worthy. I think it's like low tier A worthy. It's a very solid tank, but it can't really 1v9 that hard. So if you have like an enchanter support and you have a good front to back, sure you can lock in Ornn, but overall not recommended. Pantheon A tier as well. Why A tier? The clear is not that insane. The skirmishing is really good, but if your clear is kind of slow, and especially in shit shows, it's not as great. Popster. Popster is as well A tier. It can be A plus if you are playing against, let's say, a Lee Sin, if you're playing against, like, let's say, a Smear or a Kirei, just any dashes, right? The more dashes, the higher you can go. But overall, upper A tier. It's more a counter pick. Okay, Qiyana. They actually nerfed Qiyana a bit, the base HP, if you recall right. But the thing is that, or the health growth. Even though the health growth is lower, the thing is that this champ still one-shots. I do think most of the people that play this champion will not make it work, but I think having from S tier, upper like A+, I still think this champ is omega cracked. If you know how to play this champion, but it's like an OTP champ, right? Champ mastery is very essential. Rek'Sai, this champ actually felt quite good even when I played it. I do think that if I compare Rek'Sai compared to all the S and A+ champ, it's a bit worse. But put it somewhere, right? I don't think the champ's actually that bad. It actually can one-shot the backline, still be a bit tanky-ish. The clear's like okay-ish. I think this champion's high A. But if you look at the champ from A+, I don't think I would put it there. It's a bit of a cheesy champion and it can be more games, but I'll put it like on high A tier. And okay, Riven. Riven is like an OTP champion. If you're really good on this champ and get the head, it can actually be quite OP. But you need hands on the champion. I do think that if you are really good on this champion, I think it's like A+. But honestly, with jungle mains, I'll put it on A tier. Rengar. Okay, the thing of Rengar is that I think most people cannot make this champion work. But this champ's actually pretty solid still, even though they nerfed it. So this is the win rate on like Emerald Elo, literally. Look, Emerald Plus is still probably pretty bad, but it's like decent. This champ is literally an OTP champ. I do think this champ, if you get ahead, you can one-tap so many people. I do think that it should be an A+, considering that like this champ, honestly, they can nerf all they want, but Rengar, they nerfed the Q damage, but it still one-shots you. Played against one, I'm like, is it nerfed? It doesn't feel like it. So I'll put it like low A+. But most people cannot play this champ. Like Qiyana Rengar, I would not advise unless like you get dedicated, but most people cannot play it. Rumble, I'll put it on higher A tier. And the Rumble, they nerfed the ult damage. It's mostly for top lane, but it affects jungle as well, right? But the champ overall is actually pretty solid, I would say. I would never say it's B tier, but not A+. It's like higher A tier. Sejuani, somewhere in the lower A tier. You go Liandry now on this champ as well, by the way. It actually deals decent damage. So this champ is a bit underrated, I think. I wonder what the win rate is, but I feel like it should be pretty decent. It's actually pretty high by the 52. But basically, if you go Leandro as champion and you have some melee champs that can stack your passive, it actually deals crack champion, or crack damage basically. Okay, Shaco. Shaco is like, it's like B tier. I swear to God, it's like such a cheesy champion. This champ is like, if your early game ganks work and you can tilt the enemy team, A tier. If it doesn't and you fail, it's like a B tier. Like, I'll probably put it like very low A tier. So yeah, I'll put a low A tier. I think it's a fair point. Set jungle, ironically, it's actually not that bad, believe it or not. I think at some point they changed set jungle a bit. It's not, bro, it's not even showing in Emerald Plus. It's kind of crazy. But I remember I've played against set jungle and actually it did not look that bad, by the way. But the ganks are a bit awful though, that's the only thing. If you're a good set, not too shabby. Shen jungle. So okay, the thing with Shen jungle is that a lot of people in solo queue forget about Shen ultimate. So I think if you don't play against Shen often, it can actually quite surprise you. And the ganks are actually not that bad. I'll put it on higher A tier. I don't think it's A+, but I'll put it on higher A tier simply because people don't expect the ultimate and the 1v1 is actually stronger than you think. Rammus is like A tier. Low A tier as well. Why is low A tier? I think that if you play front to back and enemy team has some on-hit champions, it's very solid. The only problem that I have is that most tanks clear slow, but they're always very solid in games. Literally, if you just full clear, play team fights, you're usually A tier unless you're a shit tank like Nautilus. Morgana B tier, I think the champ's is shit. I don't want to elaborate too much on Diana. I just don't think it's a good champion. It can clear good, but you miss Q, useless. You hit Q, useful, you know? Sign's like B tier. Shit ganks, even the old gank's a bit shit. It has a lot of HP and stanky, but I just don't think it does too much. Okay, Silas is that they nerfed the clear a bit. I think if you're very good ultimates and you're a good Silas player, right? I think it can be like going to A+, but overall I think it's like A tier. I don't think the champ's like that insanely well or like that insanely good and high elo. It's literally like an outplay champion and snowball champ. If that doesn't work, you're not gonna be that insane if you play more games, you know? I think Talia is just A tier, somewhere like here probably. Simply because I think they even nerfed Talia. Was this patch or next patch? There's a certain patch, but they even nerfed Talia a little bit. But I think most champs A+ is better. It's just a solid champ, but not that insane. Talonsky. So this champion, if this champion gets ahead, it's very obnoxious. I think it probably deserves to be an A+, I think. Even though they nerfed the champ a little bit, I still think that this champ in the right hands is actually really annoying to play against. And I think laners will just die to this champion very often if they don't respect him. So I'll put an A+ actually. Teemo, I'll put a B tier. This has no place anywhere else. I think this champ is not good. B tier as well. I feel like the champ... Actually, nah, it's not true. I think it's A tier. It's a pretty solid 1v1 champion. It's decent around objectives as well. But it's just in some drafts, it's just hard to play, you know? But it's pretty solid overall. Tryndamere, I would say that Tryndamere is like... Okay, in some drafts, I think it can be quite solid. But I would say that it's not that insane every single game. A lot of the games, probably you can't even play him. So it's very draft dependent. Udyr, I think Udyr is always like solid, but not really insane. I don't think it's like bad. I don't think it's good. I think it's just solid. It's just an okay champion. But it doesn't do more than that. Vi, so Vi as a champion, I mean, I'll be honest. For me, Vi is just a champion that's always like solid as well, but not really good, you know? I'll put it like literally in the middle. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good. I think it's just an okay champion to play. Like anything in A or A+ are playable or decent. Maybe actually said I should put a bit more down because I feel like this champ gets kited too easily. If you're playing against a lot of bruises, can be good, but not really that good. Okay. Viego, I would say is good, but like I said, draft dependent. With Viego, you don't have like a Blitzcrank support, Leona support, these type of champions. If you don't have those champions and you have, let's say, a Nami or something, it's not playable. So Viego is very draft dependent. I would personally not put Viego in A+. I think Viego is a champ where it might feel oppressive because when it gets kills, it gets really rolling. But overall, it's just an A tier champion. But some games, when it gets ahead, it gets really ahead. But trust me, I'm sure you play against the Viego as well. It's not that insane. Okay, Volibear. I think in high elo, I think it's high A tier. I don't think it's A+, because this champion is basically getting outskilled. And if you can't get too many kills, it's bad. But this champ is easily A+. If you're playing against the right matchup. So let's say you play against Diana, you're playing against Hecarim, you're gonna have the time of your life. But you play against other champs, not really. So high A+. The problem with Wukong is that the clear is a bit slow, the team fight is strong. I think very slow games, it can be good, but overall, because the ganks aren't that insane and the clear is slow, it's A tier. Xin Zhao, actually, this goes into S tier by the way, or even Z tier maybe. But not Z tier, because Mundo's up there, but this champ, I think, is just very f***ing OP right now in high-low. If you wanna cheat yourself into high-low, go WE max. I think this champ is really strong. You literally full clear, play objective, full clear, play objective. Warwick, yeah, that shit goes into B tier instantly. It's not like C tier. C tier is like, just don't touch it. Please don't play. It's still like okay, you know? It's not like that bad, but this gets kited very easily. Zek, I think Zek is like A+. I do think this champ is just a very good tank, has good engage, but you need to land your E and Qs. If you can land your E and Qs and enemy team doesn't have champs like Trash to cancel jump, I think it can be very oppressive. I think this champ is probably the best tank, or one of the best tanks. Zed, the thing is Zed got gutted a lot, but they hotfixed him and buffed him. I'll be honest, right? If you're like a very good Zed, it can be quite annoying, A+. Still, that's kind of crazy, but I think most of the times it's just solid A tier. But you need to be good on the champ, okay? If you're good on the champion. But I'll put it A tier. I don't think it's B tier. I still think Zed's actually pretty solid still. Ooh, Zyra. Okay, I mean, this champ in my book is actually S tier. I think this champ is one of the strong champs in high elo. Super good clear, super good team fighting. Unless you get outranged, not so good. But overall, I think this champ is bonkers. Ambessa A+. I think that this champ, if you play it well, it's a no-brainer. I think that this champ can ult your backline from Uganda and just one-shot them. It's just a high-intensity champion, master champion. But if you're good on this champ, very solid. Skarner, I haven't seen that many Skarners, but I do think that this champ is probably... Actually, I'm not sure, but I think this win rate on this champ is pretty low. She's not even that low, but it's rated D tier, but... I'll probably put it A tier, I think. Because I've seen some Skarners and it did actually pretty decent. But I think they just buffed something. I think it was the Q, which made the champ a bit better. And people are building better as well. They go damage on the champ. Trinity, you know, they just pound people instead of heartsteel. If you go 80 Skarner, better. If you go tank Skarner, not it. Zahan, okay, I think Zahan's A+. This champion is so OP in long fights, it's crazy. I'll put it like middle A+. But this champ is also a bit draft dependent. If you get hard outrage and you get kited, you can't stick to them. It's like A tier, but most of the drafts, if enemy team has like 2 or 3 mini champions, insanely good. But that's basically my tier list for Emerald Plus with my top pluses. Yeah, I'll basically be showing the Platinum and below tier list on my Discord as well. And that's it for the Emerald Plus tier list.